So come forth, champions of chaos, those most favored by the dark gods and envied by lesser men. You are the most brutal, cunning, resilient, and beautiful specimens these mortal realms have to offer. Long and arduous have been your trials. Your paths are sodden with the blood of the sacrifices of your glory. Your blind rage has laid low many monsters and men, but your last battle will be its final. For though you slayed your opponent, he too dealt you grievous wounds. But this does not have to be the end. All you have to do is ask. You were once among the greatest of scholars, striving forth in your researches to discover new technologies and the secrets of magic that cowards deemed forbidden. The weaklings exiled you, and now you are forced to run, hunted by many deplorable fools. How can one study when you are always looking over your shoulder? What if you didn't have to run? All you have to do is ask. Your village was the healthiest in the nation, until a caravan of merchants came through and infected with the plague of blue roses. You have never encountered such a disease, and now know not of a cure, but you could. Oh yes, you could, and so much more. All you have to do is ask. You were a wealthy warrior and heir to a fat old noble who rules in this quarter of the city. You set about to use your spoils of war to start an establishment like no other. To make a name for yourself and step out from the shadow of your father. Obsessively, you worked until with your own hands you built a place that would become an extravaganza of entertainment. Great feasts were held with endless drink, music, and dances, and when the moon fell, more carnal desires were acted upon. Your father discovered you participating in an orgy with both women and men, and burned the place down. Sometime later, you stand over his bedside as he sleeps. You can have an establishment again, greater than any mortal hands could build in a more enlightened place. All you have to do is ask. Your acts have been great and terrible. Emboldened are the gods for their doing. Surely they must notice you. Surely this will be all for a reason. Surely your gifts are on the path ahead. For gods to bless your heathen hearts. Which 4 champions will arise? Many are the champions of the gods, but who are the most favored? The most exalted. Hey there, everybody. In the next week or two, we will receive the news and probably a series of trailers for both the 4 champions and the Warriors of Chaos rework. In light of the recent news that Bellicor and Sigvald will be Warriors of Chaos characters, I believe all 4 DLC characters will join the Warriors of Chaos race, beating out Lizardmen for the most legendary lords in one race. Though Bellicor will be a hybrid Demons of Chaos character, Sigvald, a hybrid Slaanesh character, and 3 of the DLC characters should be hybrid races for the other 3 monogods, Khorne, Nurgle, and Tzeentch. That would leave the 4th champion to be another Undivided character. Sure, it would be neater for the poster shot of the DLC to have a character from each monogod, but with Sigvald already representing Slaanesh, it doesn't make sense to bring in another to this race. 2 Slaanesh Warriors of Chaos, but only 1 for the other monogods? Just, I think not. Unless, of course, they were planning to add more monogod characters
to the Warriors of Chaos roster. But holy moly, that would be bloated with 11 characters in one race if you add, another one for Nurgle, Khorne, and Tzeentch. Which again, I think not. So for the way they are building Be'lakor and Sigvald to be hybrid demon factions, more so than Archaon and Kholek, I think it makes sense for all these characters to be Warriors of Chaos. One for Khorne, Nurgle, Tzeentch, and then the fourth being an Undivided. I say this because it now seems the monogod factions are specifically going to be focused on demons. I find this somewhat disappointing, seeing as there are at least 2 mortal champions that I would like to see for every monogod, if not more. We could see them come as some of them come as legendary heroes, which I really think there should be a lot more legendary heroes in the game. Anyways, but yeah, in the upcoming DLC, at this point it seems all of the characters are going to be Warriors of Chaos, which I think is really cool. For this reason, I would like to see the choices who are closer to mortality in this pack to leave room for the other 4 less mortal champions to be in the monogod race, perhaps. This may be a fool's hope, but especially compared to the community's theories, but it's my hope nonetheless. I will actually start with the less mortal characters because the prevailing community theories, again, revolve around them. After that, I will go over the more mortal. Sorry if that's confusing, but after that I will go over the more mortal 4, who I don't want to see. I don't want to see them in the game more than the less mortal characters, but just for this pack and the reasons stated above, I would like to see them here in this pack. For each of these characters, I've whipped up a unique voice and using that voice, I will read a quick lore blurb, probably just from the wiki to keep things making this a little shorter, because time is ticking to when the actual news releases. Could be this week, could be next week, who knows. And just to keep this video shorter, we will probably get the trailer again for the DLC and the reworks. Maybe a series of trailer in the next week or 2. If you like the voices I might be doing, I might do longer lore videos or whatever. Just let me know if you guys think the voices are cool, or if you think they're just distracting, or whatever you think. But yeah, I definitely have a lot more speculation videos in the works, so stay tuned for that. And without further ado, let's dive into some speculation. Valkia the Bloody.
I am the harbinger of your demise. I am the nightmare in all mortals. I am the thing you fear the most. I am death. Valkia the Bloody, known also as the Gore Queen, the Valkyrie, the Bringer of Glory, the Sword Maiden of the Blood God, and the dread consort of Khorne. I'm a demon princess of Khorne. I am charged by my Chaos God to bear the worthy warriors of Norsca and beyond who die honorable deaths in battle to fight on in Khorne's hall in the realm of chaos for all eternity. Once I was a fell chieftain and warrior queen of the Norscan tribe known as the Schwarzwolf. I rose in the blood god's esteem by leading my warriors to vanquish tribes dedicated to the other chaos gods, and by slaying any who questioned my right to rule. When the demon prince of Sinesh, known as Losophax, came into my hall, intrigued by my feral beauty, and commanded her to leave my throne and join him as a slave girl, I, the warrior queen, took up my great spear Sleipnir, and in a berserk rage slew the demon, and swore that I would lay its head at the base of Khorne's skull throne in the blood god's domain. Though I died on the journey, Khorne was impressed by my devotion. From death he elevated me to demonhood as his demon princess. Charged with descending onto the battlefield to choose those worthy warriors of Norsca who will fight on in the halls of the Blood God for all eternity after their deaths. I, Valkia, was served my dark masters well for my encountered centuries. I descend upon the field of glory, my armor drenched in blood, in rays of light shining from my spear. The warriors of Norsca who praise mighty Khorne, which is to say, many of them, redouble their efforts in my presence, knowing that the Blood Father despises cowards and will strike down those who flee or show weakness, and also that to gain the prize of fighting on in his hall for all time, becoming his chosen, is a prize beyond all measure. I wield Sleipnir. I, the Gore Queen, wield a spear forged from me in my former life by a great blacksmith of Norsca, named for a terrible demon of Norscan myths. The barbed spear of Valkia has slain kings and paupers alike, ripping out their hearts or striking their heads from their body with single mighty blows. The weapon bears the blessings of Khorne and can tear through the mightiest armor and toughest hide with ease. The mail of Valkia is eternally drenched with blood, called the Scarlet Armor. It has been blessed with the power to sap the strength from those who face the Battle Maiden in melee combat. My demon shield, I still bear the horned head of Lucifax upon the shield. The demon's black eyes beguile those who seek to strike me, causing them to become distracted in battle, and causes their resolve to weaken.
Valkia is referred to as a Norscan, so I could see her starting in the Icetooth Mountains. It would also be thematic for the Valkyrie character to start in Norsca. She's Khorne's favorite champion, and Khorne loves brass, so I could see her starting in the Brass Keep. Her tribe, the Schwarzwolf, hails from the Eastern Steppes, so this is potentially a start as well. She lorefully fights several battles in Naggaroth against the Dark Elves, so starting in the northwestern Chaos Wastes makes sense, and would give a Slaaneshi rival in Sigvald as well. Valkia could bring in a unit called Valkyries of Khorne. They would function similarly to the Doom Knights of Tzeentch, though their melee prowess would be heightened. They would be very strong, like a flying monstrous infantry, but perhaps with anti-large or anti-infantry, possibly having two variants. This could also extend over as a unit to Norsca, who would just get a reskinned regular Valkyrie. Valkia would be one of the strongest duelists in the game, having only ever been matched in combat by Lord Mortkin. But she flies like Malagor, so imagine the possibilities there. Though I do think she's coming in this pack, the reasoning for why I might hope it's not her is that she is teetering at the edge of demonhood more than any other Khornate champion. I mean, just look at her. Horns, wings. Though she is the quintessential Khornate character, it would seriously hurt the chances of other Khornate lords, such as Egil Steerborn, or the character I will talk about later in the video. I still would like her in the game, more than the other champions, all the same. I just think she might fit the Monogod roster more. Festus the Leech Lord.
Festus the Leech Lord, also known as Dr. Festus, Old Sawbones, the Dark Apothecary, the Fecundide, and later as Festus Empowered, the Gardener of Nurgle, was once a proud imperial physician of the highest caliber, who rose to become one of Nurgle's most exalted Murda servants. If an unfortunate traveler were to stray onto the twisted roads that led from the Northman forests into the Chaos Wastes, he might be paid a visit by a most unsavory individual. During the dark of the night, a shuffling, muttering figure stalks these lands, his moth-eaten robes gently clicking with vials containing unimaginable concoctions, which he is seeking to test out upon those he can catch or deceive. A devotee of the Plague Lord Nurgle, the mysterious apothecary is quite mad, though he once bore the respect of physicians, alchemists, and scientists across the length and breadth of the old world. Festus was counted among Nurgle's greatest servants, a hulking, heavily mutated abomination, who was on the very cusp of achieving demonhood for his great services to the Plague Lord. I, Festus, am a walking repository of alembics and foul-smelling potions. To one blessed by grim Father Nurgle, these elixirs are restorative brews, but to others they are deadly poisons.
All of Festus's lore pits him inside the Empire, primarily in Altdorf and Nordland, so I think of all the Chaos characters, he may have the best shot at starting in the Middle Mountains, but I can also see an Icetooth Mountain start as well. The only other possibility I see is now that Skarsnik and Scrag are not starting in the Southern Grey Mountains. Maybe Festus could start here instead, to be closer to Altdorf, but I find this position a little less likely. Festus is a strong duelist, considering in the end times that Luin Leoncoeur defeated Kugath, Plaguefather, a greater demon, but Festus turned and defeated Luin after. Festus otherwise would probably have bound potion abilities that he could either drink for buffs or throw like grenades. Festus could also bring Dr. Grat and Victor Falcon as legendary heroes, notable cultists of the Tinian Fellowship. The former, a concoctor of disease, the latter, a barber surgeon. Festus is the prevailing theory on Nurgle, but I have two good reasons why it may not be. Though he does lead a group of physicians named the Tinian Fellowship, which would be a good faction name, I know of no lore in which he leads armies, lending a case for him not coming as a legendary lord at all, but rather as a legendary hero. Nurgle has a lot of awesome characters, so I think the more we introduce as legendary heroes or pseudo-legendary lords, the better for the game. The other reason being that, like Valkia, Festus is Nurgle's most exalted champion, and is on the cusp of demonhood. Putting him in the Warriors of Chaos roster alongside this pack would hurt the chances of possibly a Valnir the Reaper, or the Nurgle character mentioned later in this video, which I think would be a shame. Vilitch the Curseling.
I am known as the Master of Misrule and the Twisted Twin. I am a mutant sorcerer of Sinch, permanently fused to my more muscular brother Thorman. Once there was born a pair of twins, one healthy, strong, and good to look upon, and one wretched and weak and tiny, though the tribe's leaders expected the wholesome son to become a great warrior. It was the Rent Vilitch who was to change their fate forever. The twins had a difficult birth, and their mother died soon afterwards, for it took all her strength to nourish the greedy infants. As they grew up, Thorman, the thriving twin, excelled in the hunt and soon rose to the tribe's youngest warriors. He led them. The weakling Vilitch, on the other hand, was universally despised for his ugliness and frailty. He was forced to perform his dead mother's chores and humiliatingly was denied the use of a sword. Thorman used to beat Vilitch for the slightest infraction, and despite the Runt's pleas, his fathers would not intervene. As they grew up, Thorman became well-muscled and athletic, quickly learning the ways of the warrior. Vilitch barely managed to scrape by as an apprentice to the tribe shaman, where he learned a few meager cantrips and a little knowledge about the powers that dwelt beyond the veil. Every night, the Runtling prayed fervently to Zinch to reverse their fates, to make him the strong one and his brother the slave. The great sorcerer, who delights in anarchy, eventually agreed to Vilitch's selfish request. One Gamish night, when the Chaos moon passed close to the world, Vilitch awoke to find that his body and that of his sibling Thorman had melted together. His brother's intellect had been added to his own, and there was nothing left of Thorman's mind save for a drooling automaton enthralled to Vilitch's command. The grotesque fusion of warrior and Runtling that staggered out of the twins' den glowed with the power of baleful magics. Vilitch's budding magical abilities had been enhanced 100-fold, and the hulking body to which his withered frame had been fused was possessed of diabolical strength. Laughing maniacally at his newfound powers, Vilitch embarked upon a bloody killing spree, sending crackling arcs of pure change into those who had looked down upon him in the past, and forcing the body of Thorman to throttle any who tried to stop him. By the time the sun set, the village had been consumed by sorcerer's fire, and the streets ran with molten flesh. But my story did not end there. The malformed sorcerer twin hunted down all of the warrior elite of his tribe, and I used my dire powers to enslave their minds, making them little more than walking puppets that lived and died according to his whims, my whims. Now, wherever the Cursling plots and schemes to further my own power, a band of hard-bitten veterans marches at my side, each of them under the fearful command of the disturbing creature that they only know as the Twisted Twin. I am a vessel of chaos. Vilitch enjoys the patronage of the great sorcerer himself, and as part of Sinch's fickle plans, he has gifted the Twisted Twin with a dark crucible, a powerful artifact that is able to harness and store a great reservoir of unstable magical energies.
For Vilitch, his lore ties him to an unnamed tribe, which could lend him to literally anywhere in the Chaos Wastes. Perhaps he could take Kairos' place in pressuring the Great Bastion. In the end times, Archaon sends him to siege Averheim, which he does so unsuccessfully and ends up being sent back to Tzeentch's realm, where Tharman, his conjoined brother, takes back control of the both of them. This lore gives credence to both a start in the Black Mountains south of Everland and in Tzeentch's realm. But Redbeard, the realms of chaos are not in the Immortal Empire's map. You're right, and since this is the official map, I would say the realms of chaos is definitely not coming right now. Though that empty corner of the map is just as suspicious as Ind and Koresh are to me. Now, Vilitch would make for a nice hybrid duelist and spellcaster lord with probably just the lore of Tzeentch. He could also bring in chimeras, mutilith vortex beasts, and greater chaos spawns. He could be accompanied by several legendary heroes called the Azure Princes, powerful sorcerers. This would be similar to Belagar's ancestors. Now, Vilitch isn't necessarily on the cusp of demonhood. He fits this role that Valkia and Festus were in better than any other Tzeentch character, seeing as he is more mutant than man. I definitely think we need to see both Vilitch and the other Tzeentch characters that will be in the next section of the video. But that other character fits the Warriors of Chaos much better than Vilitch, in my opinion. Dechala, the Denied One.
I am Dechala, also called the Favored Concubine. I'm a heavily mutated Chaos champion of Slaanesh and a former Ursa princess. She leads the Technician, the Tormentors, one of the most powerful weapons of Slaanesh and the Chaos Oasis. I was born in Nagaroth as the daughter of Andoralesh, a mighty warrior who fought at the side of Anarion. Her beauty was said to be so exquisite that the demon Prince Samael was attracted by her and pursued Dechala and her family across Earth One. The demon promised her family to leave them alone if they would hand Dechala over to him. Eventually, my father relented, leaving his daughter to the demon. Instead of abusing her and consuming her soul, Samael chose to corrupt the princess to make her beauty his forever. Dechala, fearful of the demon and bitter at her family for betraying her, became a willing servant in exchange for the power to avenge herself on her family. She agreed to marry him when she slaughtered her family. Slaanesh's gaze fell upon her, inviting the jealousy of her husband on her. Dechala dedicated herself to the Lord of Excesses and eventually fled from her husband into the Chaos Wastes. When Samael complained before Slaanesh, the Chaos God reprimanded his servant for his arrogance threats, but offered him a compromise. If Dechala was to return to him on her own volition, Samael could do with her what he pleased. If she did not, and Samael still existed, she would never ascend to Daemonhood. Since that time, I have led armies of Slaanesh in battle against the other Chaos Gods, but she still feels better about the fact that no matter how many enemies she slays, she will never join Slaanesh as a demon prince as long as Samael exists. Dechala, I am mutated beyond recognition. Her skin is milk white. My legs have been replaced by a sinuous tail ending in a scorpion-like sting, dripping with poison. And she sports 6 arms, each armed with a weapon. Her deep blue eyes glow with an inner light, promising pain and pleasure in equal measure.
Dechala was born a high elf, Azure princess, in Nagaryth, but now her warband resides in the Chaos Wastes. She is most known for attacking the Druki and her former people. It wouldn't make sense to start her in Nagaryth, directly neighboring Nakari, but the Doomglades or in the Bleak Coast neighboring Morathi may be a good fit. Though this would still be in the northwest of the map alongside Nakari and Sigvald, so moving her southeast may be wise. The southern wastes and eastern colonies may be a good launch-off point to attack Teclis or Imrik, and may be more thematic for the half-serpent princess when Ind and Koresh drop. Dechala would be a monstrous duelist like Nakari, but with 6 arms holding blades and a serpent body, I could see her having powerful animations. She also has a good chance of bringing in serpents of Slaanesh, which I'm sure everybody would like to see in the game. Now, to be clear, I think the 4th champion could and should be Undivided, because Sigvald already covers the Slaanesh Warriors of Chaos Lord. I also think Dechala would fit better as a mono-god character, even though she is not technically a demon. She's so heavily mutated, she might as well be. Now we've covered all of the characters that are more likely to be in the pack and are largely the prevailing community theory, or theories. Now we can move on to lords that I would think would be great in the game, and if those lords we just talked about took their place, I don't really see them coming, because that would just mean we'd have to get like a dozen Warriors of Chaos characters instead of 8. So what I'm saying is those characters we just went over, I think would fit the mono god rosters better than the characters I'm about to talk about. So let's hope, I guess. Now on to the more mortal champions that would be a good fit for the game. Arbaal the Undefeated.
I have slaughtered armies of elves. I have broken the backs of dragons and eaten the hearts of sea leviathans. I am known as the Destroyer of Khorne. I was an ancient and powerful champion of Khorne who wrought many woes upon the world during the time of the Great War. And it is said that he still lives in this very day, a champion who has remained undefeated for countless centuries. Thousands had felt my axe blade at their necks, and now their white skulls lie at the feet of Khorne. Fill the moat with the corpses of your comrades. Trample on their broken carcasses to reach the ramparts. Bring down the walls with the weight of the dead. In the year -830 IC, Arbaal, the Undefeated, the destroyer of Khorne, was tired of finding no foes worthy to face him in the mortal world. It is said that I rode into the Plain of Skulls to challenge Khorne himself. The destroyer would not be seen again until many centuries later, when he fought in the Great War against Chaos at the northland city of Prague. Arbaal led 100 demons on the assault on its boundaries. It was Arbaal who finally broke the gates of the city with my powerful axe, beginning the slaughter. He would go on to slay thousands of its unlucky defenders. The champion of Khorne would later survive the final great battle of Kislev, which saw the deaths of many of the Dark God's greatest followers, such as Valnir the Reaper, and even the mighty Ever-Chosen himself as Avarkul. Arbaal is the favorite of his master, and his most devoted servant. Khorne has gifted me with the power of the Destroyer, a reward that belongs to Khorne's own champion alone. A relentless fury of destruction and bloodletting descends on Arbaal whenever he wades through his foes in battle. No one has ever been able to withstand his attacks. He is ever aware of the eyes of Khorne upon him, knowing that should ever he flee a battle, the terrible wrath of his patron deity would descend upon him and turn him into a chaos spawn. Thus is the punishment for failure. In the end times, I acted as the mightiest of Archaon's mortal followers. When I was instructed to defeat the elven armies of Caradhrian, all believed that I would stand triumphant, even against the living incarnate of fire. In the ensuing battle, my mighty axe reeked out of hot blood, leaving trails of crimson smoke behind as I slaughtered my way through rank upon rank of Othwin's finest. Khorne's greatest follower would finally be defeated, however slain during a fierce duel against the incarnate which he could have won, had his arrogance and hubris not betrayed him. I ride on the Hound of Khorne, the Blood God's own flesh hound, a demon of huge proportions, combining the attributes of a flesh hound with a massive size and power. Only Khorne's chosen champion is rewarded with the Hound of Khorne, which the champion rides in the fashion of a monstrous beast. The destroyer of Khorne is the gift Khorne, the god of war, gives to his most favored of champions. It turns Arbaal into a tireless warrior, a hurricane of fury and destruction upon the battlefield.
Arbaal rode into the Plain of Skulls and wouldn't return until he led an assault on the city of Prague. This lends very nicely to a start position in the Skull Road. In the end times, Arbaal fought the elven armies of Caradhrian and slew many of the Ulthuan's finest. This lends to a start position close to Ulthuan, perhaps somewhere in the vicinity of the Black Sea and any of the provinces nearby. The Road of Skulls also may make sense, as the other province with skulls and road in the name. Though he may be up in the pantheon of stronger duelists in the game, I think he would focus more strongly on buffing his army than, say, Skarbrand, who already plays the world beater role, or Valkia, who would be is an unmatched duelist as well, even though his name is the Undefeated. So he would be, again, up in the pantheon of strongest duelists. Arbaal makes the most sense after Valkia, and is the only character who gets Khorne's own Fleshhound as a mount, and the axe named Destroyer of Khorne, which is only gifted to Khorne's favorite champion. I think Karanak would also pair nicely with Arbaal as a legendary hero, so the early game would focus on playing with Fleshhounds. Karanak could also be a legendary for Valkia. Gutrot Spew.
Today we have provided for our father, and he has provided in kind. Witness how his hand shapes us a path to the throat of our prey. This day we have won a great victory, but it is a mere prelude to the glory we shall win in the streets of Altdorf. I am the Lord of Tentacles, the warlord of the Dragonbone tribe, and the commander of the greatest plague fleet in the north. A proud warrior whose towering arrogance often leads him into battles against overwhelming odds. Spume has risen from the ashes of former failure to reclaim his position as one of the preeminent warlords of his age. The love of sea runs in Spume's veins. As a youth, he earned his name from the habit of plunging into the sea of claws with nothing but a knife. He spent more and more time underwater, slaying the eater fish and sword sharks that roam the fjords and drag their corpses back to his tribe. His abilities as a warrior and provider did not go unnoticed, and Spume soon became the Jarl of the Dragonbone tribe.
There is only one loreful start for Gutrot, and that is the Ice-Tooth Mountains, for he was known only for fighting in the Sea of Claws and the shores of Nordland. But he was also known for fighting elves, though a specific location is not stated. I think they came to him in the Sea of Claws, but again, not sure. He is also the leader of the Plague Fleet, giving credence to any start along a shore. Perhaps the noisome tumor, since it's next to the Kraken Sea, and the entire left side of his torso is a writhing mass of tumorous tentacles. Perhaps near the Black Sea or Isthmus of Lustria, where he's closer to fighting elves instead. One could argue for Val near the Reaper in Gutrot's stead, but in my opinion, Gutrot is way cooler in every regard, even if Valnir might beat him in a one-on-one. Gutrot would be more suited as an anti-large monster killer, which would be a nice role for a Nurgle character, as that is where Nurgle is weakest currently. Gutrot is also more of a Lord character than Festus for sure. Even if he is less likely, I would love to see his implementation. Gutrot has a better chance than both of the aforementioned characters to bring in new units such as Putrid Blight Kings, Puscoil Blight Lords, and Blight Kings on Putrid Slugs. Eogric the Vile, Gutrot's chief executioner, could also act as a legendary hero. Now, Eogric never got a unique model, and literally all we know about him is he's the chief executioner of Gutrot. But, again, more legendary heroes the better in my opinion. Egrimm von Horseman. Woe, O world, the age of mortals is coming to an end. Time passes into oblivion, and the stars lapse in the sky. The dreadful breed of night is crawling out of darkness to take possession of the world. Fools, seek refuge in faith or madness, for there's no longer any other place to hide. The reign of chaos has begun. Egrimm von Horseman is a powerful champion of Tzeentch, as well as the most infamous and perhaps most dangerous of the Imperial Orders of Magic's few known traitors. And he is the Light Order's greatest shame. There was a time when Van Horstman was counted amongst the brightest and most talented magisters of the Order of Light. He was the last occupant of the Patriarch's throne at the Light College before Vespasian Cant. In his day, Van Horstman was acclaimed as the youngest, most gifted magister to ever preside over one of the Empire's colleges of magics. As he knelt down to swear his allegiance to the Supreme Patriarch, the Emperor, and the cause of the Light Order, no one guessed that his loyalties and soul had already been given over to a far more sinister master. As an apprentice, chanter of the 8th Circle of the Order, Van Horstman served under the late and respected Master Chanter Ulrich, the savior of Apesto, who taught him many of the Light Order's ancient secrets. But all the time he served with the Light Order, Van Horstman was praying to the Chaos Gods for the power and knowledge to surpass his peers, which explained his rapid progress through the ranks. By day, he studied the pure magics of Hysh, and by night he pored over the ancient manuscripts devoted to the tainted laws of chaos sorcery that the Hierophants kept locked away within their order's libraries, binding demons to serve his nefarious plans. The demons of Tzeentch no doubt whispered their timeless secrets into Van Horstman's sleeping mind, and his powers grew strong. Ever since then, he leads a sinister organization known as the Cabal. Think on the path that led you here. What manner of demonologist would I be to show my hand so early? By casting a host of demons at you the moment you walked in through the door? And what manner of a witch hunter would you be if you did not storm down here yourself to lay down Sigmar's law in person? Every step of that path I have set out for you. You are here because I have brought you here. I am the favorite of Tzeentch and master of demons. Egrimm Van Horstman is by far one of the most powerful and disciplined chaos champions ever to walk this world. Able to master the winds of Hysh simultaneously with a much darker art, and dabbling in demonology as only a young magister in secret. His arcane prowess can only have increased tenfold, now giving himself entirely to Tzeentch. Masterful pact-maker with demonkind and plotter of intricate schemes, Van Horstman's ploys and ruses are just as deadly as any magical dreadbolt or demonic flame he can conjure. Egrimm Van Horstman is favored by Tzeentch and often utilizes pacts that he has made with demonkind. It is said that to gaze upon the bare flesh of Van Horstman is to invite madness, for burned into his entire body is an endless text of restless contracts that unnaturally swirl, spiral, and shift around if watched too long. Such contracts have bound to him an equal number of countless demons, not just limited to those of Tzeentch. The Skull of Cthulhu. The spirit of the long-dead demonologist Cthulhu is said to still linger within his skull and still whisper the secrets of sorcery to whomever possesses it, only to have their minds utterly destroyed by the horrific revelations of chaos. It was the Skull of Cthulhu that whispered to Van Horstman the secret of how to contact Tzeentch directly. But to what mischievous gain this brought to Cthulhu, none can say. Van Horstman's Speculum, a small magical mirror able to switch the fighting capabilities with the wearer and the attacker. Baldros is a two-headed chaos dragon that often serves as Egrimm Van Horstman's flying steed into battle. One head is bestial with an undercut jaw, and the other is clever with sharp eyes and a skinny frame.
which can match the ferocity of this black-gray scaled abomination, and with one head spouting black fire and the other blasting acidic bile, not many can run away either. Chaos Rune Blade. This black blade is encrusted with writhing chaos runes that radiate a dark and malevolent power. Its touch is deadly, and its bite will penetrate ordinary armor with ease. Lastly, like all Lords of Chaos, Egrimm is encased from head to toe in chaos armor. It is forged in Norska, after Baudros burned him alive. Now the armor is his prison. Egrimm's novel focuses on when he was a Magister, one of the greatest among them in the Order of Light, so this gives some credence to him starting within the Empire, and no better place than the Middle Mountains. When Egrimm fled the Empire, entering Kislev in Troll Country, mounted on his dragon, Baudros, who he freed from the vaults under the College of Light, the second head of the dragon, Splinterwing, attacked Baudros and Egrimm. Its black fire reduced Egrimm to ash, but Tzeentch offered to restore his body in a suit of chaos armor that would sustain him if he gave himself over completely to his service. Egrimm swore to obey his master and was born to a forge in the mountains of Norska, where he would be remade. This gives credence to a start position in Norska, most likely in the mountains of Naglfari. After this, he would flee to the Chaos Wastes, where he created a citadel fortress at the edge of the Screaming Hills. To these gleaming silver towers, he summoned many corrupted souls, many of them being the very college folk his machinations had so perverted. Whilst I can find no map or resource that tells us exactly where the Screaming Hills is, one can surmise that it would be in the Plane of Illusions or possibly the Chimera Plateau. I think Egrimm would be paired nicely with Akold Hellbrass, who would come in the form of a legendary hero. Akold was a former son of a noble in Altdorf, and himself was a knight of the Order of the Jade Griffin, who became a mighty warrior of Tzeentch, who could fly with his wind blade, and with his breath of life ability could heal himself and others. And I think this might give him bound life spells. Together the pair would be extremely powerful and friggin' awesome. Egrimm definitely has stronger lore than Vilitch, and I think is more befitting of the Warriors of Chaos roster. The prevailing theory is Vilitch, but I think both characters are bound to be introduced to the game, and Egrimm does not fit as well as in the mono-god demon characters. Egrimm could also bring the same units as Vilitch, plus he could bring cultists like the Kairik Alkalites and beasts like fireworms and feathered fiends. He is also possibly the only Tzeentch Lord that would make sense for Akold Hellbrass to accompany as a legendary hero. Egrimm would be a decent fighter on his own, with his chaos armor and rune blade, and his mirror that allows him to switch basically fighting ability with his opponent. But would certainly not be in the upper echelon of fighters. Yeah, I mean, I guess he could switch with, like, he was battling Valkia, he could switch, and I don't know exactly how that would work, but I think high armor and a magical melee attack, but maybe low defense and weapon strength. That would change when he unlocks Baudros, though, where he would become a monster-mounted spellcaster akin to Manfred or Malekith. He would be even more similar to Manfred in that he would have two lores of magic, being that of Light and Tzeentch. He might even get a few bound spells from the Lore of Plague due to his procurement of the Skaven tome, the Liber Pestilentius. He was also known for summoning demons and binding them to his will, so I would think he might be able to save a bound, or have a bound ability to summon pink horrors like the cultist hero, and eventually, through a greater gate, a Lord of Change.
All in all, I think Egrimm makes for a much more powerful and interesting character than Vilitch, though I would very much like to see Vilitch as well, eventually. Styrkaar of the Swordsfinner. Styrkaar was a young champion of Slaanesh, the leader of his Norse tribe, and the killer of his own father, as well as one of Archaon's attendants. He later became a staunch ally of Archaon and aided the Ever-Chosen during the end times by leading an invasion of the old world with his Slaaneshi armies. Styrkaar was born into the Swordsfinner tribe on the northern coast of Norska. This lends to a position in the mountains of Naglfari in Norska. He was known to raid the Kurgan to the north and the Empire in Bretonnia to the south. He was also known to lead his armies through the Chaos Wastes, destroying the Khorne host led by Karnak, the mysterious Esger, warriors of Tzeentch, and eventually slaughtered Vandred the Majestic, Archaon's lieutenant of Slaanesh. This could lend him to possibly start in the southern Chaos Wastes, or possibly even the eastern steppes, but I have my doubts about those positions. Lastly, after killing Vandred, Styrkaar became Archaon's new lieutenant of Slaanesh, and would go on to lay siege to Hergic, the capital of Huckland, lending him to start in the neighboring Middle Mountains, possibly. Now, again, I think we already have Slaanesh covered with Sigvald, and bringing in Serpents of Slaanesh would already be covered with Dechal's introduction. Side note, Styrkaar rides a Serpent of Slaanesh, which is super badass, so I would like to see him in the game, though I think he could be introduced as a pseudo-legendary lord in a mechanic for Archaon, similar to how Marcus Wolfheart obtains his heroes. In this case, you would complete a quest for each god and unlock a pseudo-legendary lord. Kron the Conqueror for Undivided, Hargroth the Blooded for Khorne, Fator the Tainted for Nurgle, Melik the Changer for Tzeentch, and lastly Styrkaar for Slaanesh. Though Vandred could take this spot as well. I don't think this mechanic is coming, unfortunately, but it would go a long way towards Archaon feeling like the true Ever-Chosen. Attention modders, that's a golden idea right there. So, just saying. So now we've covered the 4 characters that I would like to see for each of the gods. In a Warriors of Chaos regard. Even though, again, I think we're covered with Sigvald as far as Slaanesh, but Styrkaar's kind of cooler anyway, so I mean, I don't know. That being said, if there is no Slaanesh character in the 4 slot, then we need another Undivided character. And let's go into that now. Mortkin.
Surrender, Von Rakov, to me, or I will crush your city. All of Volganov will die. I swear to the gods, your suffering will be great. You have a single day to decide your fate. Lord Mortkin, also known as the Black Iron Reaver, was a mighty king of the Norskins and the commander of a fearsome army of Norse warriors known as the Fell Legion. He is primarily notable for his long and devastating campaign against Ostland and Nordland in 2515 IC, where he slaughtered the entire province in an orgy of bloody revenge in retribution for the destruction of countless Norse villages along the coastlands of Norska by Elector Count Valmir von Rakov. During the war, Mortkin destroyed the ancestral seat of the von Rakov line, razed the cities of Gludberg, Voganov, and Seltraken, and personally slew the heir of Von Rakov house, Oleg Von Rakov, in single combat. Many are the rumors of his life, the saga sung to his glory by the skald chanters of the Norse. In some tales, he was the son of a bloodthirsty warrior king, fathered by the king's union with a demon succubus, and born under a blood-red sky. In another, he was a mighty chieftain of the tribes, driven by the lure of power and the whims of the gods. According to this version of the saga, the ironclad barbarian king returned from a mighty sea raid, covered in glory and the favor of the chaos gods. Yet still he sought more. Thus he traveled to the north, driven by dreams of immortality, in search of ancient power and glory that would elevate him to preeminence in the eyes of the gods. Thus it was that when the man who would later be known as Lord Mortkin ventured into the madness of the true north, he gained the power he sought and was changed beyond all recognition. In life, it is undeniable that Mortkin was a terrifyingly powered Chaos Lord. When he entered the Chaos Wastes, he overcame many challenges, not the least of which was defeating a massive giant in a test of strength and fighting Valkia the Bloody herself to a standstill. Both feats speaking volumes of his incredible strength and skill in battle. His attacks were devastating, often described as being so lethal that they could fell giants in a single strike. He also defeated the leprous council, potent sorcerers of Nurgle, which shows his ability to resist magic. Indeed, Mortkin showed great resistance to arcane powers, evident also in how the Ice Blade of Von Rakov, a relic of Kislev, entrusted to them by the Ice Queen, did little to pierce his armor. When the gods saw fit to make their instrument, Mortkin was so filled with the power of chaos that the winds of magic throbbed in a great corona all around him. That such an influx power did not cause him to devolve in a chaos spawn is in itself evidence of his willpower and sheer favor in the eyes of the gods. Mortkin was also able to call upon this bestowed power to become a lethal killing machine, more so striking with staggering ferocity. The favor of the dark gods also made him impervious to all but the most powerful spells. The Black Iron Reaver was an unable and charismatic leader, for he brought the contentious Northmen under his banner in such numbers that his leadership could only be matched by one of the Ever-Chosen themselves. His very presence made his warriors unbreakable in battle, and such was the mythical aura about him that his presence on the field alone drove his fellow Norsemen to untold heights of bloody bravery. Such was the respect he was afforded by Norse. His campaign of conquest, which left much of Kislev in flames and ravaged almost the whole of Ostland, also speaks highly of his skill as a general. In addition to his battle axe, Mortkin bore the Hellfire Sword and rode upon a juggernaut, the later being a gift from Khorne for his bloodletting in the Chaos Wastes.
I only believe there are two locations Lord Mortkin could start in. As pictured in the illustration of his invasion, he swept down from the northern wastes, either through Norska or by the way of the Skull Road, then through Kislev and into Nordland and Ostland, ending at Volganov, at the Battle of Volganov, where he laid down his weapons, accounting that his vengeance was done. In this way, he leans more into a Norscan character in that he is not inherently evil. He just wanted revenge against the Ostlanders, known as the Von Rakovs. Though his power and leadership was only rivaled by that of an Ever-Chosen, his story could lend to mechanics and quests where he gets gifts from the 4 different gods. A quest to defeat the Nurgle sorcerers that makes his armies spread plagues or just be immune to them. Perhaps it could give Mortkin more magic or physical resistance. A quest to defeat Skullix the Great, intriguing Zeech, ultimately binding the fire dragon to your will, either as a legendary hero or maybe even a mount. This maybe also gives Mortkin an aura of change due to the winds of magic ebbing from his power, given to him by Tzeentch. A quest to defeat a two-headed giant, also known as an Etin, that intrigues Khorne, who then sends Valkia, who you must also fight to a standstill, followed by Khorne granting him a Skullcrusher mount, and then a quest to bind a bloodthirster named Kargarok to his banner. All based on lore. They would just need a quest and rewards for Slaanesh, and then he would make for quite an interesting and powerful Warriors of Chaos Undivided Lord. Though, he could make for a Norscan character as well. I believe Bjorg Bearstruck, Mona Mim, and Sael the Faithless are all better in the Norscan roster. Now, Mortkin could bring an aspiring champions-esque unit to either the Norscan or Warriors of Chaos roster in the Black Iron Reavers. And they would just be like an aspiring champion, possibly for Norsca. I don't know how they would make them different if they were in the Warriors of Chaos roster. Stepping back to Skullix the Great, he is a Doomfire Dragon, also known as an Emperor Fire Dragon. Emperor dragons are a class of dragon rather than a species, being the greatest of their species. At least this is my understanding of it. Emperor dragons were so strong they could often cast spells from the lore of magic their species is most connected to. For Skullix, this obviously means he could get a few bound spells from the lore of Akshi, aka the lore of fire. So again, he could either, he would get those bound spells if he was a legendary hero, or maybe they would be granted to him, or granted to Lord Mortkin if Skullix became a mount. Stepping back to Mortkin for one more second, I also think if he was introduced, he could join Wulfric, as well as Be'lakor and the Demon Prince formerly known as Yuri, in the ability to take the title of Ever-Chosen if they defeat Archaon. Alright, so now I'm just going to go through some notable mentions, the first and foremost being Harold Hammerstorm. All we know is that Harry liked to roam the Chaos Wastes and was known as the Bane of the Undead, which situates him best of all the aforementioned characters to land in the Southern Wastes. Here he could launch off to the Vampire Coast to Nehekhara or Nagashazar itself. Though Harry has far less lore than Mortkin, he may have a more unique role. Mortkin is very Ever-Chosen-esque, invading Kislev and the Empire and slaying mortals. My boy Harry could juxtapose Archaon better by starting on the other side of the world and vanquishing the undead who joined with the Ordertide in the end times. He was the first Warhammer wielder in the Games Workshop history as well, so having him in a game that's the ultimate compilation of characters would be a true novelty. So for Khorne, there could be Egil Styrbjorn, that will also Vorgoroth the Scarred, who rides a fire dragon. It could be like a Khornate dragon if they wanted to give dragons their own flavors. Aelric Cyanwolf for Tzeentch. Valnir the Reaper for Nurgle, as I mentioned before. Glutos or Scullion for Slaanesh. Technically, he's an AOS character, and I very much doubt we'll ever see him. But he's got a really cool model, and he's a nice juxtaposition to particularly Sigvald, but also the entire Slaanesh roster, in that he takes excess in the way of eating. So, for all my big dudes out there, represent Glutos or Scullion, you know what I'm saying? There could also be a mortal version of Daniel, or, God, I hate saying that, the Demon Prince formerly known as Yuri. He could come as a possible FLC. Creative Assembly already said they wanted to try to make more characters like that, in that like RPG kind of framework. I would love to see at least one Order Tide version. I think it would make the most sense to just do a human guy, and that guy could kind of switch between, I don't know, Cathay, Empire, Bretonia, Southern Realms if they come, and but a mortal Chaos Champion version of Daniel could have much more variety, particularly from having mounts like Juggernauts, Blood Thrones, Discs of Tzeentch, Rot Flies, Rot Beasts if they come, which I hope they do, Seekers, Seeker Chariots, Gore Beast Chariots, Chaos Steeds, Chaos Dragons, Demonic Steeds if they come, which I hope they do. Looking at you, Dorgar. Maybe can utilize full schools of magic, unlike the Demon Prince, and can swap schools depending on which god or gods you dedicate to, and maybe able to customize whole magic skill line if you dedicate to Tzeentch, or have like 2 schools, and that character could start anywhere on the map too, which is nice. Some other Undivided characters that could work as lords or legendary heroes is Mordric the Damned. Mordric was the Lord of the Brass Keep and a fortress, and also a fortress in the Chaos Waste at one point. So, I don't know, he could be a legendary hero for Herald Hammerstorm, or vice versa. Ingrid Deathsword is a champion who, I think he... Mordric the Damned, or I think Mordric the Damned has the sword that can change people into Chaos Spawn, so that would be cool if like you had a hero that, like, you know, if they're in combat long enough, they might summon a Chaos Spawn or change somebody into Chaos Spawn. Ingrid Deathsword, I mean, he's just a powerful champion and lord, and he's got a really cool sword. Cordell Shorgar would be a great legendary hero for Archaon to start with, because he is the bannerman for the Swords of Chaos, and like he's a great champion, a great duelist. It'd be really nice to have him as a legendary hero for Archaon. For Khorne, again, well, let's talk about some legendary heroes. You know, some legendary characters that probably wouldn't get the legendary lore treatment. Karanak, we mentioned before, 3-headed Bloodhound Fleshhound prominent character would be really cool. Scar Bloodwrath is like the hero form of a Wrathmonger, which would be a really cool, like aspiring champion type unit for Khorne. For Tzeentch, again, Acold Hellbrass or the Azure Princes, Nurgle, Eogric the Vile for Gutrot, Slaanesh, Nakari could get Elryon, which is an elf, the high elf that basically Nakari subjugated. There's a Luthra, who is a Slaaneshi cultist. Maybe could be a legendary hero for Sigvald. Again, I forgot to mention Dr. Grat and Victor Falcon for Festus. Yeah. That's about all the other characters. Now, could there also be an FLC? I think it's hard to say at this point, but Mortal, Demon Prince, formerly known as Fury, could be possible. An Undivided Lord if they bring in an extra Slanesh character, which I still just don't know why they would do. And maybe we'd see Boris and the Red Duke come out and with the Immortal Empires as FLC. I don't necessarily think that needs to happen. It would be nice, but I don't want them to do those lords wrong. You know, I want them to take their time with those guys, and I think they have enough on their plate with the Immortal Empires as is. So, I was gonna talk. I was gonna do more in this video. I was gonna talk about generic heroes, generic lords, units that could come in the DLC, FLC, or just like free with the update. But as you can see, this video is already running over an hour. And at this point, I don't even know like how worth it this video is going to be to make, or that video, which I'm making as a separate video at this point. Because, you know, the trailer could come out Tuesday for the Warriors of Chaos. I feel like it's going to come out next week, which is why I'm just trudging through this, but either way, I hope you guys appreciate the work I put into this, because I just, like doing all these voices, I just had to work on my mouth. It's like, it was a bit of a sacrifice to do, so I hope it pays off. But anyways, yeah, let me end this thing off. Thank you for being here. If you sat through this entire thing, you guys are awesome. Have a good day.